time my disk was absolutely empty, and now there's way too much. Like, here's what it is. Close the music. Go to the working screen. Make sure everything's showing up. Okay. Go back. Okay. So we are on to our next episode, the episode 1 of season 2 of Sliders. The episode is Into the Mystic. There are 3 worlds that occur here. I am Silent, or Ukakisa. I am a philosopher, political philosopher, medical ethicist. You are?
I'm Koki. I'm a guy who likes alternate history. Well, likes history and alternate history.
So this particular episode starts out with Cue Ball having a dream sequence in which he is dead, and the friends are kind of mourning him very quickly. For a refresher, he was shot at the end of the last episode, which, is generally not pleasant. Wade makes out with Ryan on his grave, again, still as part of the dream. There's a groundskeeper, or not a groundskeeper, a guy in a top hat, dressed all in black, who we don't know, who's in his dream as well.
Can I just remark that, well, before I just sort of shrugged, and it's like they don't really explain the arrangement, but it seems as though Wade and Quinn have some kind of open arrangement. Rembrandt's response gives us reason to believe that at least he thought they were exclusive, or not necessarily exclusive, but that this is inappropriate. And so, yeah, their relationship is kind of weird.
Yeah. And then this guy in the top hat is also seen as their getting off the world. He's a groundskeeper, or I forget what the word I had listed down was. And but he's just like laughing hysterically at Cue Ball as they're sliding off. So I have extremely bad facial recognition abilities. Was it determined? Did we decide that this guy was Mr. Gale?
The Sorcerer's Assistant, I forget his name. Yeah, it's the same guy.
Okie doke. So this guy is Mr. Gale from the next world they go into. There's a question of whether these worlds, or this is one of the first suggestions to me, that you play by the rules of the world that you're in. Obviously, like the physics of the world you're in. Obviously, you don't play by their what's it called, medical rules. Your biology remains the same because you're still you. So they relied on Ryan to get the bullet out instead of going to the hospital, because the hospitals are always a constant pain for them.
It's not just hospitals are a constant pain. They're resorted to doing this in a tent. I think it's worth looking at what little we know about this world. We don't see any concrete. We see a groundskeeper, an evil groundskeeper, but a groundskeeper nonetheless. Uh,
Well, we don't know if he's an evil groundskeeper. He just has an evil laugh.
he's evil.
Go on.
I suppose that's worth noting. I don't know how much of a say they had in avoiding hospitals versus there may not have been a hospital anywhere near there. As far as we can tell, it seems as though the whole thing is kind of wilded or maybe a park. I mean, I guess the fact that they found someone means that they're not necessarily out in the wild entirely, but I get the impression that San Francisco, at least a large part of it, is some kind of nature preserve, which is really interesting considering how useful San Francisco is as a bay. I'm not sure what might have led to things being that way, but well, ultimately we don't have enough information. But I don't know if you
Mm,
have any more comments on the world before we go into alternate history.
yeah, I didn't really. It just kind of seems like they're in a park, and if you're in a park, it can easily just look like nothing's there because that's the nature of the interior of parks.
Yeah, I don't know if they specifically said they were avoiding hospitals. I don't remember that. So I would say that if someone's got a bullet in their arm and they find someone who can help, and it's like, I'm going to take you to the nearby tent, this tells me that the nearest hospital is pretty far. So that this park is pretty big, which again is unusual for a place like San Francisco that you'd think that real estate would be at a premium. Now,
We also
why
don't know
things
how much time they have there, and I guess gunshot wounds as well are different than many other types of injuries because, at least in our world, they always, to my understanding, they always require an investigation and a police report, and so the police would also come and question you and force you to stay. And if you don't have, but so it could be just because of the exceptional nature of this.
I feel like in later episodes they definitely go into the hospital and just get treated, but
Yeah,
fair enough. I don't know too much about this world, and granted, there's also an amount of urgency because Quinn was just getting up when they were like, "Okay, let's slide." But I feel like they definitely want a more sterile environment if they're going to like open someone up and pull out a bullet. So, eh.
yeah. I mean, obviously that would be the
So
ideal.
what we can infer is that the area is inhabited, however lightly, by at least an amount of people of European descent, and by an amount I mean one that we can tell. Uh,
Yeah.
we don't even know if he speaks English. This may be relevant. Obviously, California was traditionally Spanish, but also there was some Russian interest in California
There were
when it was
also
a
a lot of
colony.
indigenous people.
Well, yes, 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 but like I said, we don't see any indigenous people. We see a European person, a
Yes.
European descended person. So that's why I'm going through the gamut of
Mm-hmm.
possible like European stuff. It could be British for all we know. This could be like an extension of British Columbia, but ultimately, there's not a lot to say. Like
Yeah, I don't have
other
any much to
than
go on.
an area that is pretty densely populated, has a massive park in this timeline, which there's some areas that not too many people live near that have parks. This could be a Giga Yellowstone, for all we know. I feel like if there are Europeans in the area, there would be an amount of interest in, peopling the Bay Area. But I wonder if that big valley in California would still be like a wetland or a lake or something.
Hmm.
Ultimately, we don't know. So, in terms of should they stay or should they go, I'm inclined to say they're probably better off going with what little information they have. We don't know how far behind this world might be technologically, and working on the timer may be a bit more challenging there than some other worlds.
Yeah.
And also, the groundskeeper is evil.
Or at least with what little information we have about this world.
That's true. They've been there for a couple of days, but they selfishly aren't telling us about the world. In terms of what about Puerto Rico? I mean, ultimately, we can't make too many inferences. Puerto Rico was one of the earliest areas that was colonized by Europeans, whereas California was one of the later areas to, be really peopled by Europeans. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably not an I don't know. I don't know if your answers are any different on either of those points.
Not really. Basically have no information. So to some degree, we could make up anything we feel like and just be like, "Hooray, we've just found it out." But yeah,
You're right. And then we go into what's this world called? Is it called Mystic World?
that's what the travelogue says. I was calling it like Occult World
Mm-hmm.
because we don't actually have. There's no consistent naming convention, so whatever. As long as it's descriptive, it seems to be fine. Um, oh, but so for the last world, they Ryan and the dog decided to stay on that world. Didn't get around to saying that, but that is the case. Um, we don't know
He
exactly.
really liked nature and he liked exploring stuff, so this seems like a good fit for him.
Yeah, we don't actually know why he decided to stay, other than that Wade rejected his marriage proposal.
I think Wade said that he wants to explore this world, but I could be misremembering.
Um,
Granted, he also was just rejected, so maybe I shouldn't take him at his word, but
yeah, and it did kind of seem like he wanted to stay on this world and didn't seem to have too much interest with exploring the multiverse, but then so then it goes to the intro, and we get the first introduction of the new dialogue when they give examples of possible parallel worlds, like where your dreams of becoming a superstar come true, or where San Francisco is a maximum security prison, um, etc. Um, so then they actually get into the world. Cue ball lands face down in a lake. Everybody else rushes over, picks him up, and like, hey, we need a doctor. So Rembrandt rushes over to the phone book and is like, doctor, 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 doctor. Source, or no, he's a sorcerer, 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 because on this phone book is just only sorcerer stuff. And then he's like, oh, I found a doctor, finally. They take him there. I think you know the quote better than I do, given you've said it before. But the nurse comes in and is like, "Oh wow, you're all chilled to the bone. It makes me wish I was outside enjoying the storm." And it kind of seems like people like storms in this world. At least I think that was my understanding. Um, I have to fill out an ungodly amount of paperwork at the doctor's office, and leads to Arturo saying the only constant is the healthcare system always sucks. Uh, um, doctor comes out and he's creepy, and it's noted later he's a shaman, or as Ross J. Kelly calls him, a shaman. Uh, I'm not sure what dialect uses that,
I've
but
encountered that a bit all over. I think it's just people who see it written more than they actually hear it spoken.
mm, I see. It's just a little odd to my ears.
Yeah, I'd put that up there with hyperbole. Uh, yeah, and he's listed as doctor, and Arturo later clarifies, oh, he's a witch doctor.
Yeah.
Which,
Oh, yeah. I'm getting to that as well. Um, so this doctor is kind of the main antagonist of the episode. He's Dr. Zhang, MD, which I don't know why they have MD if he's a different type of doctor. This suggests he's a medical doctor, but I digress. He's a doctor of philosophy, auric and pranic healing, spells, formulas, and divination, which leads to Arturo's comment about we've just delivered Quinn into the hands of a witch doctor, and then you get a thunderclap because it's storming outside as well. Um, so I did have a degree of commentary about that. Is Koki checking the chat just in case anybody's...
I don't see anything in chat, but I'm looking at chat.
Okie doke. And I opened the wrong thing. Going back. Okay, auric and pranic healing. So I also looked into them. I was unfamiliar with the phrase pranic healing. It just seems like basic Ayurveda to me on what I was finding. Auric healing seems like just kind of pseudo-scientific nonsense. Like, if you wear these rocks, they will fix your aura, or if we will massage your aura, which I have seen people do, and it's just kind of like as though you're doing a massage, but you don't want to touch the person, which doesn't seem effective to me. Um, that
Say that, but like, we're given every reason to believe that in this world it kind of works.
not are we?
Like, yeah, obviously he ignored the fact that Quinn had a bullet in his shoulder, but afterwards he's like, but I do kind of feel better. It's like his headache is gone. He didn't come there with a headache. So, like, this guy helped Quinn with, an amount of, I guess, malaise that he didn't even realize he had. Now, granted, this is probably in the range of placebo, right? It's kind of the power of suggestion, but
Yeah, if you go in without a headache and they convince you that you did have a headache or your head hurt, and then they're like, and we fixed it. It's not really fixing the headache.
yeah, but we don't like Quinn's like I actually do feel better. So, and then there's later the tarot reading that seems a bit on the nose for random cold reading. So I'm inclined to say that there's been an amount of innovation in the paranormal that gives it an amount of effectiveness that just does not exist in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Um,
granted, I don't know how much of it is the physics of this world are different, and how much of it is that they've been able to effectively instrumentalize something that we just haven't in our world.
mm-hmm. Um, ow. Oh, but so, and so I might be taking an odd position on this. I'm not sure, but I would think that there actually is a utility um, to both auric and Ayurvedic medicinal treatments, medical treatments. Obviously, to a degree. I'm not going to. I would, under no circumstances, ever advise somebody to forego, actual medical treatment for the purpose of either of these when it's actually needed. Um, but I kind of would think that they seem like good preventative measures, or I want to say early stages, but that's not really what I mean. Because like early stage cancer, you want to get actually treated, um, and not just one of these styles of treated.
It would be nice if alternative medicine wasn't paired with suspicion regarding, actual medicine. It does seem as though, well,
Yeah, because
it does seem as though like there's some sort of, I guess, therapeutic value
yeah,
uh,
a
in this
notable
kind of stuff.
a thing that's pushed as I was looking up the topics in really in both of them, Ayurvedic and Auric, and I guess Pranic or whatever you'd want to call it, is meditation, which has clear and exceptionally well documented medical benefits. Um, then they have a proper diet and exercise, which also have clear and well documented medical benefits, and these are also all you do it as you need, and there'll be a scry or how you should do it is based on you as an individual person. It's not a generalizable treatment. Um, Food that activity level, like uh, trying to incentivize people to get out and exercise more, which again is also just a generally good thing to do. Um, or
Oh, liquid bread. Didn't see you earlier.
um, auric medical treatment has the actual thing of go out and touch grass, whereas the pranic is just go out. There's social aspects to them as well, and so I do think that there is a degree of utility within them that is good, could be useful, but as a preventative and not as a do this instead of, which is
So,
unfortunately what a lot of people do.
admittedly, my first contact, like the first time I've heard the term prana, is in the context of the Breatharian movement. I don't know if you've heard of them at all.
Yeah, I have. It's, if I recall, it's a group who believes that you only need to breathe and you can sustain yourself that way, with one of the most notable members being Shannon Doherty, who almost died from it.
Yeah. So, no food, no water, just prana in the air. And the second context I heard it from was like Jaden and Willow Smith talking about their kind of beliefs, which seemed a little weird. I mean, uh, Jaden Smith is kind of notorious for his incomprehensible tweets, but so there's a certain vibe I get with it that it comes off as kind of dangerous to me. But again, it's in the context of like skepticism regarding the actual medical establishment. I was taking a 5 minute break from some chapter work. I glanced down and saw you all around. Good to see you, but I better get. Okay, well, take care. Have fun with. To the extent that you can have fun. I'm waving like you can see me. Nice to drop by, though.
Have fun.
But yes. Obviously this is a different culture, but it does seem as though they did it at the expense of what we would call medicine. So, like, the fact that he has an MD makes me think that this kind of stuff is considered medicine in this world.
True, yeah. And Quinn does say towards, well, Doppelquinn does say towards the endish middle that the world was kept hostage by these people and their this type of healing.
Mm-hmm.
But so I mostly wanted to go off the track there and say that there is utility in both of these, but you shouldn't go for them alone. And if you have anything, if you definitely have anything serious, definitely go to a doctor. Like a, I don't know what I want to, how to phrase it, a qualified doctor. And this goes for all, I guess, all types of medicines. Traditional ones are maybe good starting places, but never rely on it alone.
I also think it's just kind of weird that, like, I understand Rembrandt was in a bit of a rush, but are you gonna go to like the first doctor you see in the phone book when someone's got like a bullet wound? I'm putting it out there, but like,
I mean, if
I wouldn't
somebody's
go to a
life is,
family practitioner with a bullet wound, would I?
yeah, I mean, well, I guess the first thing I would think of doing is finding the nearest hospital at all.
Mm.
The second thing I would think of doing is running to phone book and being like, it's an urgent thing. I'll just go to the first one I find, especially if I don't know the area, and possibly finding a qualified professional might be more difficult. Or finding a hospital versus a random address would be the same difficulty.
Like, are we given any reason to believe that 911 isn't a thing in this world?
I guess not. Not really. They don't really have too much
Yeah,
luck with cops, though, and but yeah,
I get that, but I don't know. This seemed like a very weird. I mean, obviously, any story's going to be a bit of a contrivance, but it's kind of weird that this happened to begin with. But yes, um, you mentioned this guy's going to be the main antagonist.
yeah. So then we get into slightly Wade's area of expertise. Arturo is like, yeah, just has Quinn ever had chicken pox? And she's like, Wade's like, I don't know. And he's like, I'll put that down as a yes. Which is interesting. Was this? I didn't think of looking into this, but was this before um, generalized chickenpox vaccinations? Um, I don't know.
I, I. This is the first time I've heard of generalized chickenpox vaccinations. I just thought it was general understanding that most kids get it growing up.
I got chickenpox growing up. My brother got this vaccination, so I guess this would have been after the general chickenpox vaccination. But Cuba would have been well before. He would have been born well before, so. But yes, there is a chickenpox vaccination, so you don't have to get chickenpox since the early 90s. Like, I don't know exactly, 93, 2, 3, something like that. I was one of the last American generations that I guess was basically required to have chickenpox. Not required,
So
required, but
it was first licensed in the United States in 1995.
okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean it was standard practice by then, but I think you may have already got chicken point pox at that point. I don't know when you got it, but seven. Wait, no, never mind. You'd be younger than that. Yeah, I'd be a little old for it.
Yeah, I didn't get it either. I was 91, so it would have been developed in when I was 4. But that was.
Well, that's when it was licensed and first introduced. That doesn't necessarily mean it was in like standard practice yet.
No, yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. So it would have been then by when I was 4. That's roughly when my brother was born. So it was right between my brother and me. So,
Yeah.
but whatever. So I guess the professor just thinking that maybe he has had it as this default does seem reasonable after thinking about it. Um. Oh, but then Wade's like, "Hey, Professor, come over here. Take a look at this." And he's like, "This is an eye chart." She's like, "I know that, but the alphabet, basically, he doesn't know it, and she says she does. It's the witch's alphabet, which is a thing that exists in our world called the Theban alphabet, and she knows of its existence because of her friend Sabrina, the witch." Which
Yes.
obviously is a reference to Sabrina, the teenage witch. That's what I'm doing. I forgot what I was doing on my thing. Um, so Arturo calls him a quack. Kind of. He says that to call him a quack is an insult to every quack in the field, which is kind of silly. Just as a general statement. Um, we learn that Dr. Zhang hates the sorcerer. The Sliders can't pay for this. And because of the quackery, Arturo suggests they harken back to a tactic from their childhood. Run like hell. So they just flee from the. It's not really a hospital, is it? Medical establishment.
Clinic. It's a clinic.
They flee from the clinic. And they go to a motel. They get room 13 because obviously this is Occult World.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that we were stuck on for a little bit talking about because you'd think that a world that puts more value in this kind of stuff might think 13 is unlucky and be more likely to omit that. But I suppose the whole point is they have this sort of edgy take on occult, and so they want the taboo number to be available to people.
Yeah, that was my proposition. I could kind of see the other one, but yeah.
You'd think
Uh,
that they'd sell it at a premium then, but we have no reason to believe that's what happened.
yeah, it could
Though
just
that
be.
may also be why it was the only room that was available too, because they're so much more superstitious.
True. It could just be that it's just seen as a random number as well, because there's been no devoted opposition to it. Um, but Rembrandt immediately gets onto the television, and Wade makes commentary of this, and that he's always doing it, and he posits that watching TV is a good, quick way to learn about a place's culture, which, I can't really argue with. Um, as usual, I lost my place when I had to reposition myself.
I will say that oftentimes TV will give us the culture of a generation ago, and the way of speaking is one that doesn't reflect the way most Americans speak, but it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
more or less, you get a general overview of the greater culture, at least when we have a major cultural exporter like the United States. I'm going to say if you're in a less significant country that most of your media is foreign, then maybe you won't learn as much.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, obviously, it's
guess it would
not
also
like
depend on what country, or what, yeah, what, obviously what country you're in, that's what you said, but what channel you're watching. If you're watching, like, the local news channels, you're more likely to get culturally relevant.
yeah. I'm gonna say, I watched Dragon Ball Z a lot as a kid in Puerto Rico, and I don't think that necessarily says much about Puerto Rican culture. I also watched the English dub, even though the Spanish dub, by many accounts, was better.
That just that just means that you were from a Hispanic culture.
Shush. But yeah, I just need to say that I can understand where he's coming from, but it may not necessarily be, with an asterisk. That's all.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. So Ross J. Kelly has ads in this world as well. He was funny. He's referenced as the shyster lawyer from TV. Again, Rembrandt has a bunch of run-ins with him. The first, technically second episode, the second part of the pilot, that is, he encountered Ross J. Kelly. And so he's called on by the Sliders for assistance slightly later in the episode, but first, Rembrandt puts his clothes, trying to put his clothes away in the closet, and there's a skeleton in the closet, but literally. They all go to sleep, and a Grim Reaper comes to deliver a summons in the middle of the night to Cue Ball. This is the thing that we didn't actually discuss really in depth, but do you think it's an actual Reaper or just a guy in an outfit doing a random job?
I mean, I was hinting at maybe they've instrumentalized something real and that there might actually be an amount of magic there, but a Grim Reaper would be a bit of a stretch for me. I don't think so at all.
Mm-hmm. Um, so, well, I mean, kind of same, for reasons I'll get to when we get to the Demon Bounty Hunters. So they get to call on Ross J. Kelly, and he's like, "You owe a debt to an accredited shaman." Fine print says that if they welch, they owe Zhang a body part of his choosing, and he chose Cue Ball's brain. Um, I I find this would definitely not fly within our legal system. You can't just, if somebody welches on a debt, you can't just kill them. You can't
Yeah,
legally
this
just
goes
kill them.
beyond unconscionability doctrine, though it's safe to say that they don't have any notion of an unconscionability doctrine when it
I
comes to contracts.
I am so it might be obvious, and you'll be like, it says does what it says on the tin, and then explain it. But I am not familiar with that specifically.
Yeah, long and short is that the Supreme Court recognized that there are certain things that even if you signed a valid contract, the contract is not valid if it has certain things that are unconscionable. In the case that the Supreme Court ruled in, it was one that if the debt was not paid off, the person cannot own property until the debt is paid off. And that was seen as absolutely absurd, and the Supreme Court ruled no, that's not a valid contract. There's a certain point that you say that it doesn't matter if he signed.
Hmm. Um. So the place that they met Ross J. Kelly was in front of a Sikhi establishment. This clearly, I believe, means that the point of divergence has to be after 1496. Probably, definitely has to be after 1539, though. I say that because 1496 was when Guru Nanak got his enlightenment, and 1539 was when he died, and he was the founder of the Sikhi religion.
If the point of divergence is in the United States, I'm assuming that even if it was before then, that wouldn't necessarily affect that, would it?
I could agree with your statement.
Yeah, yeah. Though the point of divergence I'm putting later than that, regardless. I'm just thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out these are definitely things that had happened.
Mhm.
I'm trying to like squeeze the point of divergence in between stuff, as well as do educational stuff for our listeners.
Yes, this is true. Was it emergent learning, divergent learning? I forget what it's called. But regardless, let's resume.
uh, then he mentions that there was demon bounty hunters, and they'll all be after him. They don't actually clarify what this means. I am led to believe that it means that they are humans because they do show bounty hunters for him later, and they all just look like humans. I believe they're humans who are supposed to hunt demons. I and they're not demons that hunt bounties, which is why I think the Reapers are also humans. They've just turned some of these mythological things into regular words or occupations.
So
I kind of
I
think
think it's. Oh, go
that
ahead.
maybe demon in this world could be stand-in for like anybody who's what what's the phrase on the lam.
Mm. So what I was thinking is, and honestly, I could go either way on this, but considering the main bounty hunter that we see is a little person, someone might be designated demon because they have some kind of physical defect by society's reckoning, and that could be what demon means.
Mm, granted, we didn't see the other two fully, but the other two just kind of looked like regular people.
Yeah, yeah. This isn't like a strong and hard point. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
like, obviously they're human, but
yeah.
it may be like there might be something about them that makes them the demons that isn't clearly communicated.
True. And for these other people, it could be very conceivably that they have some type of deformity as well. but the deformity is hidden underneath their outfit uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so even if Ross J. Kelly got a stay, wouldn't keep Cue Ball's brain from being taken, which I don't know much about the legal system in our world, but even if we assumed that this could be allowable, I would think slash hope at the very least that if you got a stay, then they couldn't kill you and take your brain and be like, no, we need to negotiate this first. This is absolutely nuts. Okay, so the sorcerer doesn't see anybody, but is the only one who can help. The tarot reader says, which I realize I didn't get to the tarot reader yet. So they see these people going after them. Tarot reader ushers the group inside. Makes vague tarot reading statements about them. Does know that cue ball gets physics easier than the professor. This world still has a Salieri and a Mozart, which I feel like also pushes the date forward a little more. That 17 Salieri was 1750 to 1825, and Mozart was 1756 to 1791. So they would still exist. Granted, the way the show is written, it plays kind of fast and loose with who's still allowed to continue being alive, because Ross J. Kelly is still alive, but that doesn't mean that the date was pushed forward all the way to now, so...
Hey, I don't know if you want to play the music again or whatever, but I gotta go to the bathroom.
I will try to continue, so you can go. I will try to continue talking until I get to the music, and I'm pulling it up. It's Nesrality by Beethoven. We'll be back in a moment.
return. Sorry about that.
Close that. Return to the working screen. Return to my notes. Alrighty. So the psychic establishes that Arturo has a son that is neglected back home. This is by way of saying, that he has a son that he's neglecting back home. And he's like, if you want to impress us, you will tell us one thing we do not already know, which... So he doesn't even argue that he doesn't... That his son is... He has or had a neglected son, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it hasn't come up before or since. He had a wife that died very young, and I'm guessing he was, well, a single dad, but we don't know much about his family.
Yeah, and if I were to be told I had a neglected son, I might be desirous to push back on that if I was not neglecting them, so...
Even if you were, you wouldn't think you were.
Yeah, that's true.
In
well,
other words, it
there are
has to
some...
be pretty bad.
Yeah, there are probably some people who would be like, yeah, I'm neglecting my son, fuck him. But yeah, the majority
and there
of
are
people...
also some people who are more likely to assume the worst about themselves. And so he might have been a good father, but said neglect is like, yeah, it could have been neglect. That being said, Arturo is not that kind of person.
By that you mean he's not a kind person, or he's not the kind of person who would neglect his son?
He's not the kind of person that would assume the worst about himself. So if he's told that he's neglecting his son, he probably would push back about that against that, even if he kind of was. But there are certain people that, even if they're good parents, they might worry, am I a bad parent? And so if someone says, the son you're neglecting, they'll think, yes, I have been neglecting my son, even if they hadn't been. Does that make sense?
Yes. I was just,
like,
wanting the
there's a
verification.
non-zero chance that Arturo just kind of accepts it, even though he may not be a neglectful father. That being said, I don't think Arturo's that kind of person. I think he generally thinks highly of himself.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
Though when it comes to family matters, he does like, well, no, it wasn't really self-deprecating with his late wife. Well, this is a bit of a tangent, though. Ultimately, we don't know too much about Arturo's family life, but yeah, he at the very least wasn't like completely dismissive of being told he neglected his son.
Yeah. And she tells them that the sorcerer has sliding technology and is capable of controlling the destination. And so he's the only one who can help them, which is what I technically had started with. And this gets all of everybody's hopes up, understandably. They're all like, maybe we can finally go home, which... if there's a time to get your hopes up, it seems like this is as reasonable one as any.
And Wade also says that magic exists, not just in this world, but in our world too. And, this seems to hint at maybe...
Yeah, so Pavel is the taxi driver again. He's obviously not my favorite character, but he's really up there. I quite enjoy him as a background character. He's just a really fun guy. The notes I have here are: Pavel is a taxi driver again. Smiley face. So Wade basically says that she believes in the ability of Ouija boards by Hasbro, the gaming company. Yes, I know Ouija or spirit boards were a thing prior, but Ouija boards are specifically the gaming company thing.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's a bit of a goalpost moving. I guess, maybe she believes that literally any scrying board would work if done correctly, and that's just the more standardized used one. Or maybe the fact that it's been instrumentalized as a toy, it's specifically because it was the most effective one. There are probably ways you can rationalize this, but at the end of the day, you're you think a toy company got it right.
Yeah. um, so while they're talking about this, they're walking up to the taxi because they're going to go see the sorcerer. And Pavel's like, "Oh, you're not going to talk about politics again, or you talk about politics. You know, the fundamentalists want Ouija boards in the classrooms, and it's a clear violation of coven and state." This is a kind of a Jeffersonian reference. It's not directly in the United States Constitution, but Hem and Madison are explicitly clear as to the nature of the relationship between church and state that they would like to see. Um, so Koki might be able to say more as the historian, but as I was looking it up, is concept goes back to my one of my ancestors actually, which is always fascinating to me. 1644, Roger Williams, founder of Rhode Island and Providence plantations, and pastor of the First Baptist Church. He split from Massachusetts because Massachusetts is like, we're gonna found a colony based on freedom of religion, and then started oppressing people who were the wrong denomination. And he's like, wow, this sucks. You suck. I'm going to form my own colony. And then did that. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. It's what I did, though. There we go. And in 1644, he wrote about the need for a wall or hedge of separation between the wilderness of the world and the garden of the church. And this could possibly go back to even a couple more steps. Originating with Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation, arguing that there are two separate kingdoms, that is, the kingdom of earth and the kingdom of God. And extreme reformists for the Protestant Reformation proposing that these should always be separate territories, and one should only and Christians should only serve the kingdom of God. They wanted to protect the church from the state, and that's why they were advocating church-state separation.
So this goes really far back in various forms. It's been a dialogue that's been happening. Well, if you look at the Vatican flag, there are two keys on there. And this is specifically an assertion that the Pope has power over both secular matters and spiritual matters. It's kind of a refutation of the separation, but the fact of the matter is that they are already seen as separate, and this has been sort of an ongoing conflict in the Holy Roman Empire. The holy being there basically to say that they are holy, right? That they got the papal endorsement. They don't need the Pope to actually rule it. We also see Gallicism in France. The idea that well, in this case, it's that the state should control the church. So we have what we might call Caesaropapacy, where the Caesar or the king appoints the priest, and when we see this emerge in England, this is kind of part of the Protestant Reformation. They have the Archbishop of Canterbury to sort of manage the Church of England. because ultimately the Vatican was seen as a political force, and the person who should have political power in England is the king. Now, how often was this just used to for kings to take church property? Pretty often. This is definitely the case of Prussia. To an extent, this was the case in England, but ultimately, the idea of the religious and the secular mixing poorly and having to have an amount of separation is something that I don't know if it's older than medieval times. Probably in the Roman Empire, at least, the emperor was the pontiff, so I'm inclined to say that it's not that old, but it's pretty old.
Mm-hmm. Um, but so the foundings of the concept of the separation of church and state are not aggressively American, but there is an Americanism in they call for their separation.
Mm.
Um, and I'm mostly pointing that out presently due to. Wait, what did I do? I think I did a dumb in my game.
We think about Plymouth a lot of the time, and you mentioned Rhode Island breaking off from that. Also, Pennsylvania, where we have a Quaker that was given an amount of land, and it was also largely built on the kind of principle of freedom from the religious establishments of Britain or England. I don't know when the Act of Union happened relative to this. The point of the matter is that it's something that the colonies presented a chance for, and a lot of the early colonies enshrined this into law.
Yeah, and I'm unsure. I kind of. Hmm. I'm not sure exactly what I want my phrase, my statement to be, but like there is still obviously there's still the topic ongoing in American politics. What should be the role of religion in government? The political far right wants like complete dominion over all aspects of life, and Christianity should be directly entangled in all of our living situations. Other people say no, and on this, as it relates to this same topic, um, the there is a threat to church from state if the state decides to endorse a particular religious affiliation that can't really go well. The if say the what's a good I'm trying to think of a good
Now
example.
we can think about Trump being at odds with the Pope.
Yeah, if I'm trying to think of a good one that's kind of extreme, but not like if the Baptists get into power and start making Baptist belief mandatory, that would start with doing the I guess what other Christian groups would think of as like relatively benign things. Prob- I, so I'm just pulling stuff out of my head. Don't come at me with Baptists don't believe that because it's just an example. Anti-abortion regulations, and people get behind that, and then they'd go into like anti-queer legislation, and then they get more and more refined, and then all of a sudden, at the extreme end, they would start trying to pose, I guess, similar with the Trump thing, that Catholics are in danger or are a danger to the society, and then they try to oppose Catholicism within the U.S. and then anybody's particular religious affiliation is capable of being attacked if you believe the wrong thing. This goes doubly like the anti-Muslim sentiments that the political right have going. Um, they're like, they're terrorists and a threat to America, but you could really throw that. If you need an enemy, you could really throw that same claim at literally anybody, just to distract attention from the real problems going on, such as severe exploitation and the fact that people can't really live.
If you'll allow me to be contrarian for a moment, generally I like the principle. It has practical value, but I do think it's worth noting that it's based on this fiction that there exists religion in one space and like civic life in another, and that we can reasonably separate them. When I think in reality, oftentimes they inform one another, and especially when we get outside of a specific Christian and specifically Protestant lens, especially when we go about like a lot of indigenous religious cultures, but also just cultures around the world. They're not easily separable. Like, what makes sports, like following a sports team, not a religion is kind of arbitrary. The fact that we say the Pledge of Allegiance or that we stand when a judge enters the room, you know, and the idea that our values, our socio political values, aren't religious, I can see an argument being made that this is, albeit I would say a useful fiction, a kind of legal fiction that we're kind of upholding, right? It's a little charade that we keep moving on. This
Yeah.
isn't to say I'm in favor of its dismantling, but I because I definitely do see the what you're getting at when we're talking about like an outsized sort of amount of influence of a specific religious sect, because then it'll be like, oh, the Seventh Day Adventists are heretics. Because I'm sure there are plenty of people who would be like, yeah, I'd be fine persecuting Muslims and Catholics. They're not Christians. Except then, you'll start going for all kinds of people, and you may not realize when you're on the chopping block. You think that maybe I'm a Pentecostal, they're a Baptist, we're both kind of this kind of American Protestant thing, but then they say, actually, the gift of tongues is demon possession. It's like, I didn't think the leopards would eat my face kind of moment.
Yeah. What was it? No, I would fully agree with that. I guess a maybe I didn't explain what I was trying to do with my statement well enough. If there are religious people who have this type of sentiment, they would have to rely on their particular religious belief being the one that gains power, so that way they aren't and are incapable of being persecuted. But if any other one comes in, then it would be trouble. But given the nature of American politics, it's guaranteed to be a minority denomination that would get into power and force their will over everyone, because the biggest one, the one that the Christianity most people are, is Catholic, and we've had a number of Catholic presidents, and they are very much not don't seem to go about doing this type of thing. Um, and then you get significantly smaller categories from then on, and it just rapidly decreases. Um,
correct me if I'm wrong, but by a number you mean two, right? I think we've only had two.
To my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we'd need another one to establish a pattern that Catholics don't have a history of trying to push their religion when they get into a position of political authority, but I
Yeah, I think we've had like more Episcopal presidents than we've had Catholic, and the thing is that a lot of the American Protestantism is sort of this broad anti-Catholic coalition.
yeah. If I recall, I think when Kennedy was being elected president, there were accusations, I guess, kind of a degree of like dual loyalty. He's not going to care about the U.S. He's going to care about helping the Vatican.
Hmm.
Um, Oops, I was looking something up and forgot what I was looking up, but whatever, I'll go back. So extreme reformists. So then they get to the Golden Gargoyle Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge was apparently not built in this world, when in our world it would have been 1933. So our time period that I am proposing, at the very least, to begin with, is that it has to be before 1933, but after 1825. Um, or probably after 1825. Um, the Golden Gargoyle Gate Bridge, God, that's hard to say, is just a rickety wooden looking bridge. Halfway across, the thing disappears, and it has a glass bottom to make people think they'll fall to their death and not proceed, just turn back. There's a degree of confusion I have about this. When helicopters exist, I guess it would disincentivize people from traveling there on foot. Well, I'm presuming helicopters exist. We know planes. Well, I guess we don't know planes exist. Planes likely exist. I guess he could have traveled by boat. The guy from Japan came to see the sorcerer, so
Yeah, on point of divergence, I'm not saying that this is the point of divergence at all, but since we are throwing around time periods, the leading case for unconscionability in the United States was in the 1950s to 60s. Like, it was a furniture company that was saying you can't own anything if you don't pay your debts.
hmm. When was that again?
So it was between 1957 and 1962 that this thing was going on. In terms of the actual case, 1965.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that it was legal to harvest a living person's organs before then. But, unconscionability doctrine is in the United States, that's oftentimes cited as when it starts.
Mm-hmm. I see. And of course, you wouldn't see harvesting organs as, I'm being silly.
Yeah.
They're dropped off by Pavel. There's a swarm of bats that come out, and he thinks that they're a bad omen sent by the sorcerer to suck the blood of trespassers. Ooh. Um, Arturo says that they should go on the bridge because he doesn't believe in superstitious nonsense. Wade doesn't know what a wobbler is. I find this kind of silly because it's very obviously a type of bird. At least I know that. The gargoyle isn't very golden. This kind of annoys me. At least in the right light, the Golden Gate Bridge can appear some type of golden, but the Golden Gargoyle Gate Bridge is rock and wood.
Also doesn't seem to be in the same location as the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, granted, you could say San Francisco Bay is heavily forested, but it doesn't look like San Francisco Bay at all. We're seeing like evergreens and it looks like it's someplace further north.
Yeah. Um, where'd I go? Q Golden. So the bridge is supposedly cursed. There's a plaque in front of it near the gargoyle that says it is anyway. Another try to keep people out thing. Cue Ball seems like he's gonna fall, and they get halfway through, and is rescued by Rembrandt, who pulls him back.
Oh,
Because
actually, it just occurred to me. Could the Golden Gargoyle Gate Bridge be named after the Golden Gate Bridge in this world, which does exist? We just don't see it.
I had not considered this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be still kind of weird. Why call it the Golden Gargoyle Gate Bridge? But that's a thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I think of it, but it is a thought. So Cue Ball's rescued by Rembrandt, who pulls him back. There's an illusion, something about moonlight refracting. I don't know. I'm bad at science. But Cue Ball throws his coat on it, and he's like, "Look, it's actually still there," because his coat just kind of looks like it's floating. Um, Cue Ball calls Rembrandt just Crying Man casually, and not like Remy or Rembrandt or anything, which I thought was interesting and inducing friendliness, like they're growing to accept each other. Um, I personally, instead of just traipsing forward, like Cue Ball and the gang do, would have had everybody go back anyway, but not to leave. I know I already mentioned this to Koki. I'm just mentioning it to our alleged viewers. Um, I would have had them go back, tie a rope to everybody, like around the waist, with Arturo in the back, and then Cue Ball, and then Rembrandt, and then Wade in the front. That way, in case there actually is no floor at some point, because you can't see it or see a difference, nobody would actually fall to their death. Wade, who is the lightest of the group, would fall down. I'm doing a lot of hand motions for not being able to be seen. Would fall down and would be caught because, like, I don't know, 400 pounds would be trying to pull her up, and she's only like 97. Um,
On your earlier bit about Crying Man, I'm so glad that Rembrandt and Quinn seem to have actually reconciled now. Maybe I'll eat my hat at this later, but I was getting tired of Rembrandt always being like, "You did this to me," and now I think it's kind of set in. This is his life now, and Rembrandt is, on a couple of different occasions, told Quinn that he believes him, that he forgives him, and so, you know, I'm glad that they're friends. I'm glad that the friendship arc has begun.
yeah, he still complains periodically, I believe, uh, but it's in notably decreasing amounts because he is stuck here. He seems like he comes to realize that. Um, and obviously, sometimes you just want to get a jab in at your mate. Remember when you did X? I'm holding that against you, but you're not actually holding it against them. You're just oh.
But yes, they probably should have been more careful crossing the bridge. Maybe toss the shirt like every other step. I mean, I suppose that's the thing. Even if it'll stop a shirt, that doesn't necessarily mean it won't like break under your feet. But I suppose the same could be true over any bridge that you crossed, visible or not.
True. Granted, I'm capable of seeing that there is a bridge for most of the bridges that I cross.
Yes, most of them.
Most of them, yeah. I can't say 100% of them because sometimes I have my eyes closed as I'm crossing.
Mm.
Um, but regardless, wait, is what that? Yes, I think I do. Haha. They get to the sorcerers. As they're crossing, I begin to think that Remy actually has the most personality of all the characters, which might be a reason that I actually like him because he continues to talk about his old life, things he had, things he's missing. Just generically, it's not like complaining. He's just like in this instance, he's like, this isn't the first time the Crying Man's walked on air, yada yada. Whereas everyone else just seems like they spit out random factoids of their past, and he spits out his own random factoids in a way that feels like it's in character and adds to it, as opposed to just these are things that exist and have done. Uh, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to say, but
No, no, I mean,
mm-hmm.
Remy's a fun character.
Yeah. So they go in, they see that their place is ginormous. I was trying to think of how to describe it. Q-Ball describes it as palatial, and I'm like, that's a good word. It is very palatial. Um,
Cavernous, I would say.
what did you say?
Cavernous.
Hmm. Um.
We're just throwing around like $5 words. It's very big, and a lot of it was largely empty.
Kind of fancy too.
Mm.
Um. Oops. So I was also like, everybody seems afraid of the sorcerer, and then you get in and they have like a receptionist just at the desk, and they're like, "Hey, we're here to see the sorcerer," and he just leans over and clicks a button, and is like, "What does one need to do to be a receptionist for the sorcerer, given everybody's afraid of him?" I guess maybe getting there, but most people don't even seem to get
Got
that
the
far.
impression that these people knew Quinn before he established himself as a sorcerer.
Most of the people they state did not. He's only been seen by 4 individuals, and 2 of those they well, he's only been seen by a couple of individuals. I don't know the exact number, and 2 of those individuals are alleged to still have not seen him. But so most of the people who would work for him aren't supposed to have ever observed him.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess then they'd be hired by the people who did.
Yeah, only one person has officially seen him, to my knowledge, and that's Mr. Gale, his assistant. Ow, 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 ow! I got a cramp in my ankle. Um, so Arturo asks if Q-Ball takes nonsense seriously when Q-Ball says he's safe from Zhang goons taking his brain. I feel like Q-Ball's hesitancy towards this is understandable because it's his brain, and even if all of this is nonsense, they're still working under a legal system that believes in this nonsense. So it's better safe than sorry. Um, Everybody who works at the sorcerer's building lives on that side of the river and never leaves. it is kind of amusing. They've only been here for 2-3 years. They've already established themselves as a conglomerate, cornered the market on everything, and I guess that's probably enough time to establish a reputation that nobody who works here ever leaves, but it's still kind of weird, I find. Um, and I wrote down as the sorceress executive assistant, the same guy as the last world who was in Cue Ball's dream. He sees Cue Ball and is temporarily stunned. This is a giveaway. This is a very slight giveaway for the fact that Cue Ball's double is the one who invented sliding in this world, and he's also a slider, and because Cue Ball's the only one capable of inventing sliding, I guess. He announces that they won't be able to see him because a guy from Japan was also turned away. Our Cue Ball announces he's also a slider, and the sorcerer demands over the intercom that he wants an audience. Sorcerer appears as a vampiric-like creature of light, obviously a hologram. Cue Ball backs up slowly away from it. Everybody else stays in place. I kind of thought this was silly. I don't know what the potential implications of that would be. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That Quinn is more afraid of a vampire than the others?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I remember thinking it was weird that, like, it's like, hey, America but British gotta rebel. America but Russian gotta rebel. America run by a corporation run by a vampire that literally tells them that he eats people. They're like, we gotta work with this guy.
Yeah,
But
I had pushed
desperate
back
times.
that I had pushed back on that with that one, Cuba seems to be anti-government and not anti, I don't know, other stuff.
Cannibalism.
Yeah, this being clearly one of the, not the most, but one of the more obvious writer or creator insert periods, because as noted, he pushes back against, oh, the government's doing something, I don't trust it. But when a big business, a corporation, is doing something, they're just content to leave it go.
Listen. The big government wants to keep you from your God-given right to eat people.
Exactly. I, for one, would do that every day if the government didn't get in the way.
All right.
Uh, um, vampires. So he backs up slowly. The vampiric sorcerer claims to have lived for centuries sliding and kills his enemies and like drinks their blood or other grotesque stuff like that. I like the phrase, ask not what I can do for you, ask what you can do for me. It's obviously was it JFK who did that quote? Or,
That's a JFK quote.
yeah. Obviously referencing that, which I don't know if I would
Which
think.
is about getting drafted to Vietnam.
Yes. Personal recommendation: I recommend not being drafted to Vietnam. If you can time travel, don't get conscripted.
Hmm. Donald Trump had the right idea.
um.
Getting bone spurs is a good strategy for sliding.
So that's not what I can do for you. That's what you can do for me. He sends them off to get blueprints from Dr. Zhang. the Arturo proposes they hold up until the slide. He once again does not interfere, or is back into his don't interfere mentality, which I also find kind of odd because he was like, "Oh boy, we get to go back home," but uh, shortly thereafter is like, "Nah, I'm not this interested in going home. I don't believe he can actually control sliding." Um,
The guy said he was a vampire. How seriously do you think Arturo's going to take him? Well, apparently not. I'll do corporate espionage for him seriously.
True. He kind of gets on board with it, but only after Q-Ball's abducted by the demon bounty hunter, uh, who's like, "Look what the black cat dragged in." I guess there's a degree of a question there. Do they see black cats as lucky or unlucky? Because I could see it either way, on the basis
I think they
that
like being edgy.
yeah, I could kind of see it either way on the basis that black cat dragging something in would be lucky for the demon bounty hunter, but would be unlucky for the demon bounty hunted. I don't know what they're called.
Bounties, the demon bounties.
Yeah, the bounties. Um. So he's taken to Zhang, who reveals he just wants Cue Ball's brain to have it. No other actual reason. He also apparently has the ex-president's brain as well, Ed Wood Jr., who on our world was a famous horror creator. The bounty hunter is like, "I want my bounty." The gang traveled with the bounty hunter, so they're all there as well. Wade offers herself in exchange for Cue Ball. Rembrandt steals the bounty hunter's gun and threatens for him for once again saying, "I want my bounty." They both kind of seem reasonable in this instance. The bounty hunter did do his job, didn't hurt Cue Ball. I mean, his actions could have led to Cue Ball being hurt, but he does kind of deserve his bounty. But I understand Remy's threats of violence due to the fact that they're gonna kill Cue Ball, and that's not a good.
This is someone who works for someone to harvest organs. I don't know. Did the Nazis deserve their paycheck?
I don't really. I think there's a degree of difference in that he doesn't. Well, I guess there's. I don't know. Your statements makes me rethink slightly. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just a guy is like, "Oh, this guy ran away and we need him back," and he's like, "Okay, I'll find him." But on the other hand, yeah, ignorance isn't really an excuse when what you're doing leads to people being murdered.
We also don't know how ignorant he was. But yeah, there were obviously lots of German soldiers that, like, drove the trains to take people to the gas chambers and stuff. Obviously, this is an early Godwin's Law, but I think that in this world in particular, being a bounty hunter is a sufficiently morally repugnant job that he does not deserve anything. Like, not even the clothes on his back, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I kind of think that bounty hunting in general is an innately immoral occupation, even for the best of reasons, because you're leading to people being enslaved.
Yeah, I've heard of some instances where, they'll pay people's bail and just expect them to be compliant with all this kind of stuff because they plan on, being paid back. And, I mean, even that seems kind of sketchy, but maybe some people would be like, "Oh, hey, this guy was really nice. He paid my bail, so I was able to coordinate and, not be found guilty or whatever." But obviously, this is all in the context of a pretty messed up justice system. And granted, there are people who are doing genuinely morally repugnant things and getting them off the. See, I'm thinking like off the prairie because I'm thinking Wild West stuff, but off the streets and stuff. It's like maybe that is the best thing to do in a bad situation. I don't know. I mean, generally, we could talk about prison abolition, and this is a conversation worth having. But ultimately, we're talking about this particular guy, and he's working for this, shaman that's in a context that someone can just like get your organs. It's like, nah, man, you gotta get out of the private sector.
Yeah,
Or at least be a bit more discerning with your clients.
true. Granted, I think any situation he would find himself in, he would lead to the same moral dilemma, which doesn't justify it. Again, maybe he should just get out of the field entirely. But one of his downsides, it could be, or one of the things that makes him worse than the others, is that he's good at his job.
Right.
I guess there's a question I hadn't thought of before. You bring up Nazi train drivers. How much did Nazi leadership coordinate in order to not let the average person who's working and doing all of their horrible activities actually know what they're doing?
Oh, a lot. There's a lot of interesting stuff, like sometimes the gas chambers were in the train car, except the person boarding them doesn't see this, and the person driving the train doesn't know what's happening, and so someone's offloading corpses, but the person who drove doesn't see that it's a bunch of corpses. So even the person unloading the corpses, you know, uh, may not know the whole process. So it's like, oh, I guess they were gassed and we're just moving the corpses, right?
Mm.
So yeah, getting people to kill people on this scale, it's kind of weird that I wrote Godwin's Law because bounty hunting, one, it's a bit more involved and on a single person basis, but this isn't an easy thing for people to do.
People
You
really
know,
don't like killing other people.
yeah, that's the long and short of it. So the fact that he's willing to hand someone over and the guy's gonna put him on a table and take out his brain right there, and the guy's just like, "Where's my money?" You know,
I didn't think of that at all, although I guess maybe I should have. But the fact that he was still doing it even after he became aware of what was occurring is condemnable. Um, Remy Steele. So they find the blueprints in a side room. Their blueprints are plans for a sliding device. There's a snake in the room, and everyone goes, ah! And Rembrandt shoots it with the gun that he still has. He used up the last of his bullets. The first one, I think he just shot the first one into the air. Guess one, he shoots into the snake, and he's like, that could have been somebody's pet. They leave. Zhang attacks them with some type of knife. Like it didn't look large enough to be a machete, but it kind of looked machete shaped. Rembrandt blocks it with the gun and then knocks him out. And Arturo's like, congratulations, that was the pet somebody. Uh, they go back to
well,
the.
granted, I get that there's a group of them, and you know, I still think it's worth stating that, like, who would win? This person who's been working with guns and hunting people down as a career, or some people who've been traveling between parallel worlds for a couple of months. It's kind of amazing how easily they
Yeah,
were able to like thoroughly dupe him
yeah. It would have been
and take advantage.
it would have been an entire year by this point. And he is having to keep track of several people all at once. He kind of leaves his guard down due to the fact that his job's finished. But I do see your point as well. Um, he should be more situationally aware that these people are his friends and you need to be careful around them.
Well, yeah, I think that more than anything, we need a process that the sliders are hyper competent at everything. Uh, did we even mention that Wade was putting herself on the table as sort of an offer to
Yes.
free Quinn? Okay, yeah. We should probably get a counter of like this many episodes since weird sex thing. Uh, though I
The counter would just
remember,
always be at 0.
yes, last episode there was also a weird sex thing where she's like, "Let's do it here in front of everybody." Uh, so yeah, fair enough. But this also uses the language of the medium where it's like, you know, he's evil because he's ugly and creepy looking. Uh,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, he's a bad person for reasons within the stuff. It's just that there's a certain aesthetic of evil that this guy very much conforms to.
Yeah, like his skin not seeming to fit well.
That is a very unsettling description, and it is accurate,
It
yes.
is unsettlingly accurate. So they run back to the source to the sorcerers. They return the blueprints to Mr. Gale, who's the apprentice. He says they can't get an audience, but he'll deliver the blueprints. Q-Ball grabs the blueprints and runs to the sorcerer, while Remy and I think Arturo also hold Mr. Gale back. It could just be one of them. I know Wade isn't involved in holding him back, though. Q-Ball runs through the hologram while the hologram's going, no, wait, don't. His double is revealed to be the sorcerer, but with long hair. Dun dun dun.
Glasses.
True. Doppel Q wanted to meet Q Ball, but the aide said not to. And he's like, they show that Gale didn't want us to deliver these to you. And they give him the schematics, and they're like, how'd Zhang get the copy of these? These are your personal ones. So he fires the aide, and the aide's like, no, but my stock options, my many years of service. Um, I feel like this leads to the obvious capitalist greed corrupts, and it's like, oh, well, we could have even more money than cornering all of the markets on everything. And instead of wanting to give your money to the guy running the business and doing the procurement of the materials because he's sliding from one dimension to back to this one. Um, Actually, I might. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
So,
So
did Quinn have a premonition about this person being evil? Are premonitions a thing in the Sliders universe?
mm, twice, I believe. But they're both on worlds that are governed by magic.
Well,
Or both
Quinn
regarding
had...
worlds that are governed by magic, because
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say.
they both because there's one from a later. See, I think it's season 3. It might be a later one in this series. Nope. Well, whatever. Where people worship the prophet, and a psychic saved Abraham Lincoln. But in that, the episode begins with Wade riding a horse in a like medieval style setting. I don't know. And then she's like, "Oh, I just had the most wonderful dream," and then they slide off into the next world, and she meets the person literally from her dreams, and is like, "I sent you that we sent you that in hopes that you would get the message and come here and be my betrothed," or something like that. So it shows that magic worlds can send premonitions to particular individuals across universes. I guess this is also a major thing for the series finale, not intended, but the series finale where it's revealed that the entire series is premonitions that one guy is having of all of these people, or of the Sliders cast, and he's just showing off their exploits to his world.
Okay, so this would mean to say that, at least to an extent, the magic in this world of this episode is real.
Yes.
Okay.
And okay. Go back to my thing, not the Call Me Kevin video. So he says nobody seen his real face except for Mr. Gale and you, of course, meaning the Sliders. However, the security guards were clearly in the room when Cue Ball ran in. They also went in and saw his face, so clearly more people have seen it, but he tries to keep it under wraps as much as possible. Zhang wanted the sliding machine to also try to corner the market or compete in the market. The cue ball, the Doppel cue ball, said that when he came to this world, he sensed incredible business potential. Zhang and people like him had kept this world under their thumb with voodoo oaths and crackpot potions. And he could trade between universes for the benefit of all. So this cue ball is so Doppel cue ball is just a capitalist in the sense of, but also in the sense of like he's just trying to I don't know where I was going with that. My brain partially died.
I mean, he has the actual equipment and stuff to produce things. Like, he has the means of production, the capital, to actually distribute goods and services in exchange for money.
Yeah. So him and Mr. Gale created the sorcerer in order to gain space, and because it's like trying to work with the culture instead of against it to make them see the benefit of what you're trying to do. I guess you could call it trying to con them into doing what is in their own best interest, if I wanted to be cynical about it. And I guess I do want to be cynical about it. Gale said the Empire would collapse if the Sorcerer was ever shown to be a human, because that would take away the air of all-powerful. Cue Ball existing is proof enough for this Doppel Q to show that he can live his own life and not be a slave to capitalist demands. He's just gonna leave this world and start doing what he wants, not what other people want him to want. I'm not sure if that's the right phrasing. You have, I don't know, thoughts on my phrasing there?
I mean, ultimately the grass is always greener, right? Our Quinn probably isn't a fan of being like lost sliding from world to world, but the idea that he isn't like obviously Doppel Quinn found himself really bound up by this sort of business venture, kind of controlling his life and not letting him sort of self actualize. Uh, I feel like there are probably ways to have a better work life balance, but
Yeah.
eh.
I mean,
On that,
a work life balance where you have no life is probably the worst of all worlds.
yeah. I'm also thinking, like, the idea that this guy should go by sorcerer would make me think that there were other sorcerers. And when Rembrandt goes through the phone book, it's like sorcerer, sorcerer, sorcerer. So these could, in theory, be different sorcerers, except for the fact that everyone says the sorcerer, like there's only one of them. I'm not sure if you have any take on the amount of sorcerers there are in this world.
I think they indicate that the sorcerer has cornered the market on a great many things, and that is a reason he seems to be so beloved, because he can just procure for anybody pretty much anything. So there might just be one notable one. There could be multiple people who are known by a similar moniker, such as there's probably other people called The Rock, but well, I guess there's definitely other multiple people called The Rock. If you say that you met, or if you were talking to The Rock, you're probably meaning Dwayne Johnson and not Saint Peter.
Okay. Wow, this is an association I hadn't made in my mind up until now, but now, okay. Yeah, we've got the wrestler apostle.
Exactly. Peter is called The Rock. Uh,
Sure.
I mean, serious question. Am I wrong? Is he not called The Rock?
I mean, he's called Rock.
Uh, mm,
Uh, Dwayne Johnson's father was also a wrestler called Rocky, so it's in the same general vein.
mm. And then, so Doppelq says that he can read the spectrum for sliding due to technobabble stuff that either has meaning and I don't understand or doesn't have meaning because they just needed to fill it with technobabble. Could be either one, doesn't matter. He can determine basically where the roulette ball will land if on a roulette wheel every time. Um, because of math calculations, physics calculations, and they're basically like, well, if it doesn't work, we're no worse off than when we started, which, fair, unless he screws up the timer completely. But they have no reason to suspect that he would.
They said that it was probable, but also very unlikely. Which I don't know if they're trying to do like some quantum superposition that it's both very unlikely and very likely.
They said
But
it's it's mathematically certain and also impossible at the same time.
really, okay, maybe I
Something like
misheard.
that.
I remember like in both instances I remember it in my brain as not like 100% either way, but yeah.
Um, so I guess that'll be so. That's not the end of the episode, but that's they then slide off the world, and so I'm going to stop temporarily to just talk about this particular world, the occult world, alternate history.
So there's a clear sort of aesthetic to this world, and that is of theosophy. Now, this is associated with one Helena Blavatsky,
Yep.
and she was a big part of sort of this vague movement of taking Eastern religion and incorporating into sort of universalist religion. Now, this is in the 1880s, and it's worth noting that in our world, the Society for Psychical Research sent Richard Hodgson, who was an Australian skeptic, to actually investigate her, and it turned out that she was doing some smoke and mirror stuff like hidden panels, and this largely discredited her theosophy as the movement continued afterwards. But I suspect that in this timeline, it remained credible and people kept experimenting with it. Though there are a couple of reasons why I think the point of divergence might be a little bit earlier than that.
If I
Um,
recall, I did not theosophy provide the basis for modern day Satanism, like inspiring Aleister Crowley, and then by extension, Anton LaVey, and then his breakaway groups, which started Luciferian organizations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This was a huge influence in the English speaking world. I wouldn't say it's the start of this general wave, and I was gonna get into this, but generally speaking, even like interest in things like the Wicca movement kind of stem from this kind of stuff, chaos magic. Like this is still a general movement that exists, even if they don't call themselves theosophy. It has many offspring. But another thing that's worth noting is that medicine, as we know it, is not largely practiced, or at the very least, it was buried under like the sorcerer and these shamans, and it seemed as though claiming to be a sorcerer was the way to go rather than claiming to be a scientist. So I am thinking about the kind of movement that was happening in sort of the 1860s and 1870s when we have groups like the Christian Scientists, we've got the Seventh day Adventists, we have, what's his name? John Harvey Kellogg, who
Hmm.
was promoting sanitariums, where he had this whole thing about. Well, there were a lot of things. There was this something like hydropathy movement. The idea is that clean air, water, sunlight, these are things that lead to a healthier life. And it's worth noting that these early things were very Christian movements. You know, I mentioned the Christian Scientists and the Seventh day Adventists. Um, but a lot of it was about like eating the right food. Don't masturbate. People were very concerned about whether or not you masturbated. But they did want you to masticate. They wanted you to chew your food a lot. And a lot of this stuff did have an amount of persuasion because compared to a lot of medical practices at the time, it was effective. You were very likely to die in a hospital due to unsanitary conditions. And so the idea of, you know, going outside, being in a community, but also being in a clean environment and not going to some place where you're likely to get infected from being cut open, you know, it kind of worked. And so we might see this already discrediting of medical institutions before we see the rise of theosophy. And I could see that sort of creating an environment where people maybe are a bit less skeptical, that they are less likely to investigate blah, blah, Kelsey, blah,
Blavatsky?
Blavatsky as thoroughly, and so we could see this sort of taking off, that medicine's being discredited. Maybe morphine didn't come up when it did. Or maybe people were generally against it. Morphine changed a lot in medicine where, if you could actually sedate someone, then you can actually operate instead of lopping off limbs. And it allowed surgeons to become a lot more specialized and work on things a lot better because you don't have to worry about someone kind of squirming around. And it wasn't without controversy in its day. Obviously, we hear about the opioid crisis now, and, it'd be like, what a huge mistake this was. But for the time, it was, a godsend that it allowed medicine to advance in ways that we generally couldn't have seen before. And so it's possible that that didn't take off, or the backlash against it was much stronger. Though, keep in mind, alcohol and even to a lesser extent meat eating were demonized a bit more at the time than morphine. But morphine, again, wasn't without controversy. It was perhaps being overprescribed. Sometimes doctors would prescribe morphine to treat basically symptoms of withdrawal from morphine. So I'd say that that's one medical innovation that maybe it doesn't happen or it's discredited, and medicine overall might be a bit more discredited. It's never been as hard a science as the natural sciences. Even today, like a lot of doctors that are actually clinical practitioners, you know, don't operate according to modern science. And admittedly, a lot of medical practices that seem to be effective but don't really have that much of a scientific grounding. Because when the rubber hits the road, so to speak, science is a little different when you actually have to apply it. So some of this getting lost in translation, also just things not being cleaner. I could see this being a thing. Though I think the point of divergence might be a little bit earlier than that. And I think the end slavery had to have ended differently than it did in our timeline. Can you guess why?
Magic.
Well, the simple fact of the matter is that in our post-slavery society, the idea that you could have someone else's organs as your property is kind of absurd, and there has to be a certain amount of legal enshrinement of ownership over another person's body that would have to be in place. Now, I guess to an extent, our Constitution does allow people to become slaves to the state in the prison system. We don't really allow debtors' prisons to be a thing. Like, we can't just hold someone captive because they owe us money. Which, in this case, it takes it above and beyond the debtor's prison where they actually can just cut them open. But indentured servitude contracts did exist, and so the actual mechanisms for ending slavery would have had to have been a little different to allow this kind of thing, or at least that's the legal mechanism that I can imagine that such a contract could exist. And the fact that they had an entire like thick book of paperwork to sign is the rationale that sort of like, yeah, people are signing themselves up to that. I could see slave contracts in this world existing like that. Not that slavery necessarily still exists, but at the very least, I think that the mechanism to ending slavery would have had to have been different.
Or at the very
So,
least, slavery might not exist in the same way as we think of slavery.
yeah, and what a lot of our medical practices, especially regarding morphine, really had their moment to shine in the Civil War. Now, granted, people thought the Civil War was grotesque and horrific, but maybe like a lot of surgeons on the Civil War battlefield getting an amount of prestige played a role in why morphine was able to take off, and subsequently the medical institution overall was able to gain more credibility, even if it seemed a little macabre in sort of the aftermath of the Civil War. But in terms of this general spiritualist movement, I think that it probably had Christian roots before the occult sort of took over. Is this a world where Joseph Smith Jr. was elected president of the United States? I don't know. We don't know the exact political mechanisms, but we definitely do have sort of the political undercurrent that was already there that allowed theosophy to sort of take hold. And it really took hold. Another aspect of a lot of theosophy and the New Age movement is that they are an aversion. They are averse rather to calling themselves a church or a religion. Right? They want to describe themselves as being like a philosophical movement or even scientific. And I mean, to an extent, considering there's an amount of effectiveness of psychics and healers in this world, maybe again, they've advanced in, even if they didn't advance in medicine, maybe they advanced in ways that we simply haven't. I don't think they could. I don't think these are actual forces in the world, but we can operate on that logic. Um, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So the whole idea of separation between coven and state, I don't think that the point of divergence is necessarily before the writing of the Constitution. I think that these people kept on claiming it exempt for so long that, oh, we're not a church, this isn't a religion, that eventually people are just like, okay, then there should be a separation between coven and state. And that just sort of became the new buzzword because these people would keep on responding with, we're not a church. But that's just a theory.
A
I don't
film
know.
theory.
Yes, a Sliders theory, obscure '90s show. It's not that obscure, theory, but yes. The long and short of it is, I think that there were some. Yeah. I'd say it all comes down to how the end of slavery or lack thereof, I don't know, played out. The legal framework might have been different, avoiding the Civil War. Like it might have been some kind of framework that allowed people to keep their slaves, but perhaps phase it out some other way and also have other mechanisms for getting new slaves, albeit through debt. Which it's worth noting, this is something that they did in our timeline. Like peonage was still a thing after the end of the Civil War. Just giving people more and more debt to sort of keep them as your personal property. There was also a quote unquote apprentice system where these people worked for you without pay and you had the right to sort of like capture them if they tried to escape. So there might have been more of a transition to emancipation if that indeed did happen in this world. That is like you can harvest people's organs, and without the Civil War, morphine might not gain the credibility it did. There might be more of a backlash to it, and subsequently movements like the science movement or the sanitarians or hydropathy or homeopathy gain a bit more credibility, and people are a bit less skeptical when theosophy takes off. And that's how I'm making this world happen.
Hmm.
I don't know if you had a better point of divergence in mind, but this is where more or less where I'm at.
Not, not really. I don't. I agree. Yay.
Right. You probably weren't expecting slavery to come up.
No, I was not. I'm always surprised when suddenly racism, because
It's true. The same thing with was it the hippie world?
yeah, it's
Racism was a big part of our history.
and I hate racism. Hot take, but racism bad.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a hot take.
um,
So, should they stay?
well, Puerto Rico first to stay on the alternate history.
Okay. So, Espiritismo is a thing that exists in Puerto Rico. It definitely follows that same general wave. It's also worth noting that there are Afro Caribbean sort of uh, of other Afro Caribbean sort of alternate religion stuff like Santeria. I'm going to say that this would have a lot more of credibility. I'm actually looking at this, looking up Espiritismo. Apparently, there was this guy called Alan Kardec that came up with Spiritism, literally just a translation. That had sort of like an idea of communing with spirits. I know that a lot of them do involve are closer to what we might call Wicca. They have like specific rituals to make specific things happen, and that might be the case. It's kind of hard to infer much more about this other than one, they do believe in God. Like, this isn't necessarily a complete sort of departure from Christianity that we might see with Satanism or theosophy. Though I'd argue that those aren't really a departure from Christianity. They still make very Christian assumptions, especially Satanism. But
Yeah, same.
that's sort of deviating a bit. The idea is that there's a spirit world, that there are entities that you know exist that we can interact with, and we can form sort of contractual relationships. So in this case, it's a bit more like traditional paganism it was than it is like like the modern Wicca movement. Um, would this change a lot? No, I mean Puerto Rico's been religiously diverse for decades. Now, granted, the point of divergence is before the Spanish-American War. I guess it's possible that Spain doesn't become part of the United States in this timeline, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess you could argue that the Civil War, if it doesn't happen, means that there's not as much of a basis for the federal income tax, and so having a standing navy and army might not be as big a priority. And so Spain might be, or that Puerto Rico might be part of Spain to this day. But I'm going to assume that the Spanish American War plays out more or less the same way, barring any other evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as for the other question, obviously we have different opinions. I can already gather this about how certain they are that the world they will slide is going to be their world. I feel like if they stayed just a bit longer, they probably could have figured out a way, one, to slide within 39 years. I don't know how often this guy has to slide. But two, make it so that if it's not their world, they would slide back to the mystic world. In which case, they're friends with the sorcerer who has advanced sliding technology.
They
So,
don't have the capability of of choosing a world to go back to.
I mean, the first sliding device, you go back to the world you slid from. So
Yes.
if they made a new sliding device, they can make it so that they slide back to the sorcerer's world.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So I could understand their eagerness, and it really depends on which of us remembers the statement correctly. Where it seemed like I thought they said profoundly unlikely. But if it's just impossible and certain, then that's quantum babble, and I can't really say if they have reason to doubt that it would be their world. So I can understand the eagerness, but I could also I would say they should have held their horses. I'm not sure where you are on this.
I kind of think, due to the fact that this guy has an established empire or an established business empire, and his method of doing it, or how he is capable of doing his empire is traveling from world to world. It clearly seems like he can read uh, where he wants to go to, which, I mean, there's still an obvious, I believe, level of difficulty in there. Like, how do you go to a world without horses? That way you can bring them horses, but because that's a little odd. But just assuming he can, or because that's, I feel like that's sufficiently well established that he can do. Um,
Mm.
they don't. I don't think they have any reason to distrust his capabilities in this regard, and so they should go with him, or just trust that he could be able to. Because if they're not, for the same reason that they pose, if it's not their world, they're literally no worse off than they were prior. But if it is their world, well, hey, they've made it home.
Yeah, I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that this person probably could have made it in a way that they could be more sure. But a lot of this hinges on how certain we would be about technobabble that ultimately we can't understand.
Yeah.
Now, I'm inclined to say there was reason for them to doubt because they did doubt. They felt the need to test it and look at the newspaper and stuff. So, you know, I'm inclined to say that maybe it's sort of like, hey, I understand your eagerness, but we want to make sure, actually sure, before we slide. And if we don't slide, we'll probably figure out a way to slide soon.
Yeah. I guess the degree as well, like if both cue balls were involved in the fixing or alteration of the device, and the doppel cue ball clearly explained what he was doing and why he was doing it and how it worked. I believe our cue ball would have been able to understand what he's saying and have been able to been no guys, I can guarantee this has a very good likelihood of working. Like, even he tested his normal sliding device before it was fully ready, so there is a degree of him willing to just risk it that's innate. But
Mm.
he doesn't seem so arrogant that he would uh, just do a test on them that he wasn't sufficiently sure would uh, be to their benefit.
I mean, the time constraints are a factor.
Yeah. Um,
Actually, I want to rewind a bit to Puerto Rico. Something that just hit me, and I probably should have thought of this in advance. But the Espiritismo movement played a pretty big role in the. Hmm. I'm trying to think of a politically neutral way to refer to this. Individuals who identify as Taino. And obviously, this opened sort of the door to sort of rediscover, I guess, indigenous practices or perhaps realize some of their practices were in fact indigenous practices. So there may be a bit more credibility to the idea that modern Puerto Ricans are Taino, or at least some of them. I guess I shouldn't say Puerto Ricans in general, but there are some Puerto Ricans that identify as Taino and have an amount of recognition from institutions. And this is also true in the Virgin Islands. There's in that case, I think it is like actually recognizes the Taino reservation. So I suppose this might be a notable difference. We may have like formal indigenous reservations on Puerto Rico, as well as just more of a presence of Taino people, or perhaps Neo Taino, a Neo Taino movement, if you are a bit more skeptical on the argument from cultural continuity. Um, and a lot of us do strongly identify as Taino. I realize that this has been received in lots of different ways by the American indigenous community. And so we also may just see that Puerto Ricans call themselves Taino or indigenous, and a lot of the census records, paperwork for getting your license and such, may include options for that. And Native American as a demographic in Puerto Rico may be something that's recorded, at all. Because right now, it's not like a recognized thing, and it would be in much higher numbers than even people who identify as Taino today.
Mm.
So yes,
I believe they
that's what
should trust the guy.
trust the guy. Yeah, back on that, yeah, I am inclined to say, I mean, this is the thing, both staying and going involve trusting the guy. Um, but they clearly weren't working on it until the very last moment, so there was a certain amount of, this is what I can do. But,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they found themselves in a situation where they didn't have enough time to be sure, and they ended up sliding from a world that very well could have been their world. And so that alone tells me that maybe they shouldn't have just slid.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate. I think that's one of the shortest time periods they've ever had to identify a world. Obviously, it's for storytelling effect, but
Yeah, yeah.
still
I mean,
sucks
there
for
was
them.
everything's on fire. Let's slide. But that's yeah. Actually, that's kind of the thing, right? It seems though the more hostile the world, the less time they have to spend on this. Maybe,
With the exception of
maybe,
their home.
or what you call it, the Cro-Mags. Maybe it was a very dangerous world for them. We
Mm.
just didn't see that yet. Like maybe they were about to be kablooied. We don't know.
True, true. Maybe they landed on a world where if there's any outsiders from the community, they grow Leviathan mouths like from Supernatural and just eat them.
Well, what can you tell us about the world that they went to and decided wasn't their world?
So I'm convinced. I am sufficiently convinced that it is supposed to be Earth Prime, due to the guy being able to read the world signatures and what they have occurring in their newspapers and everything. Um, they so they're there for 53 seconds and change. I don't know how much longer they were there for when they before he looked down and saw it was 53 seconds, but it was we see the entire time they're there, so it's not very long at all. They grab a paper on the road and they're like, O.J. Simpson has been tried for double murder, and the Raiders played in Oakland. Cleveland Indians made the World Series. I can understand the what the heck at the O.J. Simpson, but I don't know enough about sports ball to tell you anything about why the Raiders or the Cleveland Indians having their accomplishments is odd. Um, but then Cue Ball is like decides he should test the squeaky gate that they made a point to note out in episode 1 because he also thought he was home then with because of the fact that the gate squeaked in a particular way. So he's like, I know this, like, if the gate squeaks, I know it like the back of my hand. We can determine if we're here based on the sound it makes. It doesn't squeak, and so they're all disappointed. And they're like, oh, can't put our faith in sorcerers. And they slide away. Then the yard keeper for the Mallorys came out. We saw him in episode 1 as well. Along with Cue Ball's mother. I think this is the second to last time we see his mother in the or this version of his mother in the series. The other times we see her, she's played by a different actress. Again, which leads me to believe the other instances are not actually his mother. But so the yard keeper comes out with Mrs. Mallory and says basically, hey, look, I finally fixed the squeaky gate. And his mother's like, Quinn always said he was gonna fix that, and she gets upset, and he looks kind of sad for having done it. Like, I know you miss him, Mrs. M, but he'll be back again. I know it. I feel like they went really hard in, yes, they made it back to Earth Prime, and they didn't realize it because of how short time was, so they left.
Yeah, the squeaky fence is a weird metric considering how weirdly similar worlds are. And they do encounter another world with a squeaky fence. So it is kind of weird as a metric, but I could see it as I'm literally here. We have world is a little sus, and we have one way to sort of determine this, and that is whether or not the door squeaks.
Yeah, it is definitely just the whole situation is unfortunate.
Now, granted, they don't see much of the world, so for all they know, this could be like 1984 Big Brother type state. But we do see that the world is.
They don't even see any people on the world.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a completely empty world. It could be the world where everyone slid.
It's the world where everybody died because of how ugly SpongeBob and Patrick were.
Isn't that one of the Fallout endings that literally everyone dies?
The ugly barnacle.
Yes, the ugly barnacle. I haven't played the Dead Money DLC actually. Well, regardless.
Oh right, I remember what you're referencing now. It's very hard to get that ending. Like, but go on, sorry. I keep interrupting you.
It seems... No, I interrupt you more. In any case, it seems like their houses, their buildings, they have an amount of reason to believe, hey, this might be their world, but again, with the information they have, they would be like, no, this is not our world. But maybe they could salvage something. At least the air is safe to breathe, and they weren't, like, immediately taken captive. I don't know, like... Not knowing that it's your world and having reason to doubt that this is your world, even though the sorcerer's like, hey, I know the place. I guess knowing nothing other than seeing the houses, would you say, yeah, let's give this more of a shot, even though, again, certain things about your world are clearly not the case in this world?
I would say we have so little information that I would almost definitively not want to risk going on this world in case this is actually a super hostile world like the Nazi world in season 4 where Rembrandt is abducted for being black.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd be like,
yeah. The
just
simple
in
fact of the matter
case,
is,
I don't want Rembrandt to be killed for being black, so we might slide just to be safe.
yeah, yeah. There's a certain amount of danger. And what about Puerto Rico? Well, given that we haven't given every reason to believe that this is our world or something similar, this is clearly the timeline where Puerto Rico not only declares independence but conquers the Caribbean and South America.
Hooray!
Um,
Just like
but
we've always wanted.
beyond that, I guess that sort of covers everything, right?
I believe so. I don't think I have anything else.
I'm sure I'm gonna remember something later. But in that case, have a good one, everyone.
Ah, and I'll see you next time. Have fun.